If you tune into conservative media of any kind, there's a high likelihood that you've heard at least one person say, the Democratic Party hates men. Democrats hate men, and that's why men will never vote for them. The Democratic Party only appeals to really effeminate, girly men and to women. It's an anti-male party, they say. They don't provide much evidence for this. But what's interesting about this whole thing is that it wasn't really a thing in previous elections. Do you recall Republicans saying Obama hates men? I don't really recall that. I gotta say, I remember a lot of bad criticisms about Obama, but not that he hates men or that Biden hates men. But in the 2024 election, when Kamala Harris is the nominee, all of a sudden, Democrats hate men. And then after Kamala Harris loses, Republicans are scoffing at Democratic attempts to get back young men. They're saying, yeah, you tell men that you hate them and now you want them back. Good one. Now, this has actually infiltrated even non-right-wing spaces. Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks recently said that the Democrats tell men they hate them, even though objectively it is the case that no elected Democrat has ever said that they hate men. So where on earth do they get this from? I mean, after all, I'm a man and I don't feel like the Democratic Party hates me, so case closed. My testimony is good enough, so Democrats don't hate men. I'm just kidding, that's a horrible argument, but the Democrats don't hate men. So where do they get this from? Well, I think it's a deliberate Republican tactic. It's programming that the Republican establishment has zapped into their brains, and so they go around repeating it. Why though? I think part of what feels so good to them about the idea of saying that Democrats hate men is that the Republican Party historically, at least for the past 20 years or so, probably more, has had the reputation of being the exclusive party, the less inclusive party, the more bigoted party, the party of wealthy, straight, white men who are usually Christian, usually evangelical. That's what they were known as. So yeah, not much diversity among them. That's what they were known as. They were known as kind of, wanting to keep the party lily white and keep out minorities and keep out women and just, oh yeah, no, we're the cool yacht club of old white men. And so when they smell a possibility that they could attack Democrats for not being inclusive enough, being sexist against men, they just love that. They eat it up. They hypersalivate. So they're like, Democrats, you hate men, you hate men. But why? Why now have they brought this up? They've had to defend themselves against usually very true allegations of racism, of sexism, of homophobia, transphobia, the Republicans have. And now all of a sudden, they are very quick to allege sexism against the Democrats, particularly sexism against men. So why? Well, my theory is that after Roe versus Wade was overturned, something kind of snapped with them. So it was a big victory for them. Anti-abortionists were very happy with that ruling, including anti-abortion women, because plenty of women do oppose abortion actually. But for women who are pro-choice, who want to have abortion as a federally protected constitutional right, it was a very sad ruling. Very sad. 6-3, all of a sudden, after damn near 50 years, they don't have this constitutional right. So you can't blame them for being upset that a constitutional right of theirs is being taken away, even if you personally disagree with abortion and don't think it should be a constitutional right. It's understandable that they would feel energized against the Republican Party. After all, President Trump appointed three of the right-wing justices who were part of that 6-3 ruling in favor of, basically turning abortion back to the states. And so women have to deal with the fear now that their state is going to go all out against abortion, pass some really draconian anti-abortion law with just very limited exceptions, if any exceptions. Some politicians don't believe in any exceptions, or if they do, it's just life of the mother at risk. Other than that, nope. So women have this fear and they vote for Democrats. Democrats appreciate that. The 2022 midterms ended up not being that good for Republicans. They did retake the House, good for them, but they also lost a Senate seat. John Fetterman defeated Dr. Oz. And so abortion was definitely on the ballot in that election. It was. Democrats saw what the Supreme Court did. They were like, holy cow, there goes Roe versus Wade. Well, women, you want to get energized, you want to vote for us, and that's what women did. So leading up to the 2024 elections, the Democrats think that they can replicate this performance. They think they can, so they continue trying to appeal to women. Abortion rights were taken away. Now, abortion wasn't the only issue that Democrats talked about. It wasn't Kamala Harris's main issue at all. She talked about plenty of other issues, but Democrats hammered on abortion quite a bit. Republicans were like, oh, geez, you sure care about women, huh? And so the Republicans perceived the Democrats appealing to women as being anti-male. They said, oh, it's a zero-sum game. You can't praise women. You can't try to help women without harming men. That's the way that they view it, zero-sum game. So they said, that's anti-male. What has the Democratic Party offered men? Well, I'll tell you what, abortion being legal in your state or a federally protected constitutional right doesn't harm men at all. It doesn't. It's not taking anything from men. Men are not the ones bearing children. Men, in fact, if they're with a woman and they want to get an abortion, they can be pleased by the decision to get an abortion if it's an unwanted pregnancy, if it's significantly burdensome. And I'm not saying, that should be the number one issue for men or anything like that. I'm not a single issue voter for any issue really, but they could view it that way. So Republicans were very cynical at weaponizing this newfound Democratic enthusiasm for helping women. And they said, oh, you just hate men. You just hate men. And then, Kamala Harris being a woman probably didn't help the Democrats. If the Democrats had run a man and then picked Tim Walz as the VP, so it was 2 men versus 2 men, the Republicans would probably be a bit more hesitant to accuse the Democratic Party of hating men, although they probably still would levy that charge. But it was really in the 2024 election that they found the energy to say, you hate men. There was some stuff leading up to this, remember the Gillette ad? Which the Gillette ad, when you look back on it, you rewatch it, it was pretty mild. It was just like, hey, don't be a toxic man, be a good man, don't use toxic masculinity. And that obviously that wasn't made by the Democratic Party anyhow, but it ruffled a lot of Republican feathers. I used to be a little bit more conservative on social issues, but even then I didn't see the Democratic Party as being anti-man in 2019. I was like, okay, whatever, I've got other issues with the Democrats. But yeah, this whole thing kind of just emerged. I know a lot of them also felt like they were condescended to by the idea of Kamala Harris nominating Tim Walz. They were like, oh, he wears hunting gear. He thinks he's pandering to men. But at no point did Tim Walz say, I am wearing this hunting gear. Men, please vote for me. That was not a thing that actually happened. So that's all in their heads. They're playing the victim about this. Now, if he did say something like that, if he said, hey boys, I'm in my hunting gear, I'm a real man, vote for me, I'm a real man, that would be cringe as hell, but that didn't happen. So Republicans, please stop getting upset about stuff that's in your imagination. Now, of course, does anti-male sentiment exist on the left? Yes, kind of. Yes, you can find some very unhinged ex-posts just disparaging men, berating them, gratuitously insulting them. Here's the deal though, they're not elected Democrats. They're not Democratic activists. They're just upset leftists on Twitter. And you know what? I can find a lot of vicious, unhinged posts from right-wingers saying all sorts of horrible stuff, saying the N-word, racial slurs. But I would not go and say, oh, the Republican Party says the N-word because some random far-right user on X said it. No, it doesn't work that way. You can't accuse politicians of stuff that their base does. So, no, overall, this idea that the Democratic Party hates men is total nonsense. Where I think it came from was, first of all, the Republicans trying to turn the tables on the Democrats and say, actually, we're more inclusive than you. You don't include men. You only appeal to girly men and women, but you don't want real masculine men. It's a tactic they do. It's cynical, and I don't know how many of them even believe it. They think that they can kind of play divide and conquer and be like, young men, the Democrats have abandoned you. Please come into our arms. We will welcome you with cookies and all this stuff. So they think that they can do that, and then also the Democrats appealing more to women as a result of Roe versus Wade being overturned, even though this appealing to women on their part was totally logical because they had a constitutional right taken away from them. Men are not getting pregnant. Women are getting pregnant. Women felt like their bodily autonomy was at risk, particularly women in red states or even swing states, or hell, maybe even some blue states happen to have state legislatures that would consider something like that. So it was all up to states. The federal government is no longer looking out for women's bodily autonomy in abortion. And so that is why the Democrats thought that they could win over votes from women, and they succeeded, although Republicans unfortunately succeeded in telling some young men, hey, the other party hates you, so you need to come vote for us. Come vote for Donald Trump, who's a real man, even though he's a draft dodger, even though he's a total wussy and a coward, and he just disparages women. Yeah, no, he's real masculine and cool. And so they won over young men, tragically. It does seem like young men are gradually turning on Trump and the Republican Party, or at least Trump, because he's the one in power. But yeah, we got some deprogramming to do in terms of convincing men that no, the Republican Party is not cool. The Republican Party is not masculine. Democrats, for all their flaws, do not hate men, and helping women is not anti-man. It's not a zero-sum game. Let me know what you think in the comments below about my analysis here. Please like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. This is The More the Merrier, and I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.